This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Tuesday, July 15th, 2025. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
President Trump threatens Russia with new tariffs and promises defensive weapons for Ukraine. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
Fire tears through the Gabriel House assisted living facility in Fall River, Massachusetts.
I thought I was going to die.
I'm Julie Walker.
A win at the Supreme Court for the Trump administration surrounding education. I'm Clayton Neville.
Jerome Powell is asking an inspector general to review the Fed's building overhaul as he comes under White House fire. Sagar Magani, Washington.
Earnings season begins this morning. We also get the latest on inflation. The NASDAQ opens at a fresh record high this morning. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
New York City's mayoral race now even more crowded. And at this airport, it's a creepy tarantula takeover. All ahead on America in the Morning. President Trump welcomes the NATO Secretary to the Oval Office and announced a weapons deal to help Ukraine and warned Russia of penalties to come if they don't stop their attacks on their neighbor. John Stolnis has details from Washington.
The president voicing frustration with Vladimir Putin and continuing missile attacks by Russia on Ukraine, announcing new financial measures will be put in place if Russia doesn't stop the violence.
We are very unhappy, I am, with Russia, but we'll discuss that maybe a different day. But we're very, very unhappy with them, and we're going to be doing very severe tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. Tariffs at about 100%. You'd call them secondary tariffs. You know what that means.
Secondary tariffs would target Russia's trading partners in an effort to isolate the Russian regime. The president admitting his conversations with Putin have been fruitless thus far.
And I always hang up and say, well, that was a nice phone call. And then missiles are launched into Kiev or some other city. And I said, it's strange. And after that happens 3 or 4 times, you say, the talk doesn't mean anything.
The U.S. will send Patriot air defense systems and other top defensive weapons to Ukraine that Trump says will be paid entirely by NATO and European allies.
We are going to be sending them weapons, and they're going to be paying for them. The United States, will not be having any payment made. We're not buying it, but we will manufacture it, and they're going to be paying for it.
NATO Secretary Rutte says this is the right way to handle this phase of the Ukraine war.
This is again Europeans stepping up. So I've been in contact with many countries. I can tell you that at this moment, Germany massively, but also Finland and Denmark and Sweden and Norway, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Canada. They all want to be part of this, and this is only the first wave. There will be more.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who famously sparred with the president during a tense Oval Office visit earlier this year, said he is grateful to the president for his willingness to protect Ukrainian lives. President Trump was asked why he hasn't been able to keep his campaign promise of ending the Ukraine war early in his second term.
Well, I think it's a very short period of time. I think, don't forget, I've just really been involved in this for not very long. And it wasn't initial focus. This is a Biden war. This is a Democrat war, not a Republican or Trump war.
June saw the highest civilian casualties in the last 3 years, with 232 people killed and more than 1,300 wounded, according to the United Nations. John Stolnis, Washington.
An investigation continues as to what caused a massive fire at a Massachusetts assisted living facility that killed 9 and injured at least 30 people. Correspondent Julie Walker reports when firefighters arrived, they found some elderly residents hanging out of windows and begging for help.
When I opened the door, smoke just hit me. I tried to fight it because I was right near the exit door, and I knew I could get to the exit door, but I couldn't. So I got back in the room. It was filled with smoke. I went into the bathroom filled with smoke. I opened the window as far as I could, and then I hung out the window yelling, help, help, second floor.
Fire tears through the Gabriel House assisted living facility in Fall River, Massachusetts, killing 9. Lorraine Ferreira.
I thought I was going to die. I really thought I was going to die.
Ferreira says instead of staff alerting her, a neighbor did, but she could not get out.
And someone above me was yelling, help, help, third floor.
Emergency workers rescued more than half the roughly 70 residents.
I would venture to guess, without knowing the exact number, that there were more rescues out of this building last night than there have been in the 23 years that I've been a firefighter combined.
Fire Chief Jeffrey Bacon says it wasn't easy.
The mobility issues associated with this type of facility is the biggest obstacle, right? I mean, you have a lot of people that can hardly get out of the building on a good day.
At least 30 were injured, some severely, others with smoke inhalation.
But the first responders did an excellent job. You got to give them credit. Did an excellent job. Getting people out, pulling them out of windows. A friend of mine lived on the 3rd floor, and I kept telling him, get him out. He's blind and handicapped. And they got him out. They got him out that job.
Governor Maura Healey.
You know, it's horrifying to think about what happened in the middle of the night in the dark. You know, people just scrambling as best they could to get out through windows, the firefighters coming up ladders, you know, hauling people down in any way possible to get them out of the building, the panic. It's so heartbreaking and so sad.
The cause is under investigation. I'm Julie Walker.
When we return on America in the Morning, look for mass layoffs at the Department of Education after these messages. Welcome back to the program. This is America in the Morning. The Southeast expected to receive buckets of tropical rain. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
As a tropical rainstorm approaches the central Atlantic coast of Florida today, rain will pick up in intensity. As this storm tracks westward across the Florida Peninsula and into the Gulf, at least a general 1 to 2 inches of rain can be expected for just about all of Florida, but higher amounts up to 4 to 8 inches near where the storm makes landfall in the central part of Peninsula. The storm will then head into the Gulf before making a second landfall in the New Orleans area early Thursday, resulting in a second area of 4 to 8 inches of rain from southeastern Louisiana into southwestern Mississippi, but at least 1 to 2 inches of rain can be expected even toward Little Rock and the Texas-Louisiana border. Severe weather is also expected today from the north central plains to the upper Midwest, where AccuWeather severe weather experts say that the area from Nebraska to central Minnesota and northwestern Wisconsin faces the risk for localized damaging wind gusts of at least 60 to 70 miles per hour, along with hail and flooding downpours today and tonight. There can even be some areas of steady rain from Montana to North Dakota and northern Minnesota as well, with a spotty afternoon thunderstorm around from the Ohio Valley toward the interior mid-Atlantic as heavy thunderstorms develop in the desert southwest as well, particularly the area around the Arizona-New Mexico border, where some of these storms can produce flooding rainfall as well. There could even be some rain and thunderstorms in parts of West Texas that may be heavy enough to produce flooding, with some storms along the southeast and into the mid-Atlantic. Then New York, expect partial sunshine today with a spotty afternoon thunderstorm and a high of 85. For San Diego, low clouds give way to some hazy sun with a high reaching 73 today. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Simply search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. The Supreme Court has cleared the way for the Education Department to fire hundreds of employees. Correspondent Clayton Neville is following the story.
The decision by the country's high court is one that advances President Trump's plans to dismantle the Education Department, plans that he hasn't shied away from. He spoke with Fox Business about them.
You have to see Washington. It seems like every building's Department of Education.
The Supreme Court's 6-3 decision temporarily pauses an order by a lower court judge that had reinstated about 1,400 laid-off employees at the Education Department. The lawsuits against the administration argued that those cuts have rendered the department incapable of carrying out legally mandated work. Justice Sonia Sotomayor, one of 3 dissenting justices, wrote after the ruling, quote, "When the executive publicly announces its intent to break the law and then executes on that promise, it's the judiciary's duty to check that lawlessness, not expedite it." Education Secretary Linda McMahon, meanwhile, responded to the decision by saying closing the department does not mean cutting off money from those who depend on it. She insists the administration will keep supporting K-12 students, students with special needs, and students with college loans. I'm Clayton Neville.
Facing scrutiny from the White House, the Federal Reserve's chairman is asking a watchdog group to review costs of the Fed's building renovations. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani explains.
The Fed's been renovating 2 of its Washington office buildings for years. The cost estimate right now is $2.5 billion, $700 million more than originally expected.
This incredible spectacle on the nation's mall of large S.
White House Budget Chief Russ Vought says the renovations are ostentatious and offensive and may violate local building rules. The incident's a sharp rise in the administration's push to get greater control over the Fed and go after Powell, whom the president appointed and now blasts for not lowering interest rates.
He's a knucklehead. Stupid guy.
The president and others have urged Powell to step down, but there's no indication he'll leave until his term ends next year. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
In sports, baseball's Midsummer Classic takes place tonight. It's the All-Star game between the American and National Leagues. When we return on America in the Morning, 100% tariffs on countries that deal with Russia. We're back after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. Here's your Tuesday Business Report with CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after slight gains for stocks yesterday, but it was enough to push the NASDAQ to a new record high. Investors are hoping for lower tariffs before President Trump's August 1st deadline. Some investors are selling some of their big winners right now.
Seasonality usually does occur August, September, and it's frankly because of people doing exactly what I'm doing, saying, listen, we've come a long way in a short period of time. It's August. I want to put my feet up and not worry about things so much. I'm still going to be plenty invested, okay? The market goes down, I'm going to feel it, but I'm going to have the dry powder with which to pounce.
Lebenthal's Jim Lebenthal on CNBC. Over the past few days, President Trump has announced new tariffs on the European Union, Mexico, Brazil, and more, plus secondary sanctions on Russia.
With all of these latest tariff threats set to take effect on August 1st, are they actually going to go into effect then, or are they simply still a negotiating tactic?
The letters are the deals. The deals are made. There are no deals to make. They would like to do a different kind of a deal, and we're always open to talk, including to Europe.
But if the president hears something that he likes between now and August 1st, he's still listening and open to striking some sort of a different deal. The other piece of news from the president on tariffs today was those secondary sanctions against Russia. This is the idea that it would be a tariff of about 100% on any country continuing to do business with Russia unless Vladimir Putin agrees to some sort of a ceasefire deal within the next 50 days. That would be September 1st.
That's CNBC's Megan Casella. We get the latest on inflation this morning. The CPI Consumer Price Index for June. Inflation has been going up, but it still may be contained for a while.
Exporters are eating part of the tariff. And then importers have forward bought 4 or 5 months. So that's keeping inflation in the pipeline away from the market. With time, we will see that inching up. Time is the president's enemy here. Up until now, the president has walked a tightrope. He's been able to use tariffs, threaten with tariffs, and the U.S. economy has held still. As time goes by and these tariffs begin to show up in the economy, what happens if inflation is up? I'm sure that will temper him. Doesn't mean he'll walk away from them.
That's the former Commerce Secretary Carlos Gutierrez on CNBC. Earnings season begins this morning. We get quarterly results from big banks. Bitcoin topped $123,000 yesterday, a fresh record high before pulling back. Starbucks says it's requiring some remote workers to return to its Seattle headquarters at least 4 days a week. On today's watch list, earnings coming from JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup, BlackRock, and Wells Fargo, plus Albertsons and JB Hunt Transport.
There's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. When we return on America in the Morning, flight attendant, what's this spider doing in my dessert? After these messages. It appears that Andrew Cuomo isn't giving up yet on his political comeback. The former disgraced New York governor who lost in a Democrat New York City mayoral primary to socialist candidate Zoran Mamdani, will stay in the race for mayor, but instead will run as an independent. Cuomo will be on the independent fight and deliver party line right next to current mayor Eric Adams, a Democrat who's also running as an independent. On the Republican side, Guardian Angels founder and talk radio show host Curtis Sliwa is the lone member of the GOP on the ballot. There's a fine line between exotic and creepy dining. Karen Shamas reports on 1,000 tarantula spiders who decided to show up in dessert boxes at an airport in Germany.
German customs officials have released images of tarantulas hidden in sponge cake boxes after a smuggling bust. Arachnophobes beware. Customs officials on Monday released photos from a seizure of roughly 1,500 young tarantulas from an airport in western Germany. The creatures were found inside plastic containers that had been hidden in chocolate sponge cake boxes that was shipped to Cologne-Bonn airport. Customs authorities were tipped off by a noticeable smell coming from the packages that didn't resemble the expected aroma of the 7 kilos, about 15 pounds, of confectionery treats, according to an official. Many of the 8-legged creatures didn't survive the trip from Vietnam to Germany, while survivors were given to the care of an expert handler, according to the Customs Office. I'm Karen Shamas.
Spiders, perhaps you'd like them. They are good for web development. America in the Morning for Tuesday, July 15th, 2025, is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
President Trump says he'll slap tariffs on Russia if there is no agreement to end the Ukraine war. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Recovery in Texas brings plenty of challenges. I'm Clayton Neville.
Watergate, Iran-Contra, Lewinsky? No.
The auto pen, I think, is maybe one of the biggest scandals.
I'm Richard Johnson.
More than 20 states are suing President Trump's administration over billions of dollars in funding that is now frozen. I'm Julie Walker.
Elmo's usual posts of encouragement and kindness on X were taken over by a hacker. I'm Marcela Sanchez.
HBO is getting ready to attend Hogwarts again. I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. America in the Morning continues. Could we see more record rainfall today along the Atlantic coast? Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
The short answer is that thunderstorms should be a lot less widespread around the Northeast today after heavy, slow-moving storms brought widespread intense rainfall to places including the New York metro area, where a daily record rainfall of over 2.5 inches fell in Central Park. Some parts of that area picked up at least 4 to 5 inches, though. However, today brings much quieter conditions overall and much less widespread rain, with just the chance of a spotty afternoon thunderstorm toward Manhattan, parts of the lower Hudson Valley, and into the interior mid-Atlantic. The highest coverage of afternoon storms looks to be from the Jersey Shore southward toward central Virginia, but there can be spotty storms from the Ohio Valley to the East Coast as far to the south as Georgia. From there, all eyes will be on a tropical rainstorm making landfall later today around the central Florida Atlantic coast, then tracking westward across the Florida Peninsula and eventually bringing heavy rain to the central Gulf Coast, including New Orleans on Wednesday. Look for at least 1 to 2 inches of rain from Florida into central Arkansas, far eastern Texas, and southern Alabama through Saturday, with the highest totals of at least 4 to 8 inches expected from central Florida through southeastern Louisiana. Elsewhere, severe thunderstorms are also on tap for today in parts of the nation's center, with storms into tonight from Nebraska northward into South Dakota and as far to the north and east as the western tip of the upper peninsula of Michigan, able to produce hail, flooding downpours, and wind gusts of at least 50 to 60 miles per hour. There may be some heavy thunderstorms over areas near the Arizona-New Mexico border as well, with some steady rain at times from Montana into North Dakota and northern Minnesota, with the west coast looking dry instead for today. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
America in the Morning continues. You can also listen to us on your favorite podcast network. Just simply search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. President Trump has not just issued an ultimatum to Russia, but also to countries who deal with the communist nation. Washington correspondent Sagar Magani reports on Trump's anger over the continued Russian bombardment of Kyiv, ramping up weapons being sent to Ukraine, and Russia facing a deadline to either end the war or, along with Kremlin trading partners, face extreme U.S. tariffs.
President Trump says he'll slap tariffs on Russia if there is no agreement to end the Ukraine war within 50 days.
We are very unhappy, I am, with Russia, but we'll discuss that maybe a different day. But we're very, very unhappy with them, and we're going to be doing very severe tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days.
It's the president's latest show of frustration with Vladimir Putin. He says they talk often about ending the war.
I speak to him a lot about getting this thing done. And I always hang up and say, well, that was a nice phone call. And then missiles are launched into Kiev or some other city. And I said, it's strange. And after that happens 3 or 4 times, you say, the talk doesn't mean anything.
And the war keeps going.
If it's not done, if we don't have an agreement in 50 days, that's what we're doing. Secondary tariffs. And they're biting. And I hope we don't get to the point where we do. But I've been hearing so much talk. It's all talk. It's all talk, and then missiles go into Kiev and kill 60 people. It's got to stop. At a certain point, ultimately talk doesn't talk. It's got to be action. It's got to be results.
In the Oval Office, the president and NATO chief Mark Rutte laid out plans for European allies to buy American weapons and send them to Ukraine, which Rutte hopes makes Moscow think again.
I would reconsider whether I should not take negotiations about Ukraine more seriously than I was doing at the moment, if I was Vladimir Putin. It will mean that Ukraine can get its hands on really massive numbers of military equipment, both for air defense, but also missiles, ammunition, etc., etc.
Sagar Magani, Washington.
The continued threat of flooding is making rescue and recovery efforts in the deadly July 4th floods challenging in the Texas Hill Country. Following the story, our Clayton Neville.
In Central Texas, life safety still the #1 priority, with more rain and potential flooding in the forecast this week.
We have pre-positioned swiftwater rescue assets around Uvalde, around Del Rio, and around Concan. Turn around, don't drown. Don't drive through a low water crossing if you can't see the road in front of you.
Texas Emergency Management Chief Nim Kidd.
The number that continues to blow me away is the over 13,000 volunteers just coming out to help anywhere they can.
The high number of volunteers and the forecasted rain is leading the state to encourage more organization and more planning among volunteers.
In each of these communities, we will be establishing volunteer reception centers. The idea is for you volunteers to go to those sites so that we can match up your capabilities and skills with the needs of the community.
Dozens of states are helping with the searches.
I met with search and rescue teams from Florida who were there in the water, working all day long to locate anybody they can find.
Governor Greg Abbott confirming 97 people still missing from the Guadalupe River floods and 101 total from across the state in recent flooding. The governor reacting to concerns about local justices of the peace, who he says slowed down the identification process.
There was a backlog and there were challenges because of local JPs in Kerr County that were slowing things down, holding things up, and it required pressure from the state and others to make sure that they began to expedite that process. It was inexcusable for some local JPs to slow that process down.
The governor was asked about FEMA, which has had a more limited role in the response than it typically does after a natural disaster.
We needed improvements in FEMA, and it needed to be what I call right-sized so that it would be more nimble, quicker, in the response, but also understanding that it's the locals who know what is best in responding to a disaster.
He said he's working closely with the Trump administration on how to navigate the recovery.
We're going to work to find ways to streamline the process, cut through all the red tape.
At least 132 people dead from the flooding, and that number expected to go up. I'm Clayton Neville.
President Trump and many House Republican leaders continue to investigate former President Biden's actions and demeanor in his final weeks in office. Correspondent Rich Johnson reports there's continued interest in Biden's use of the auto pen.
In his final days in office, President Biden expedited pardons and clemencies for nearly 4,000 people. And to sign them all, he used an auto pen, the mechanical device programmed to recreate a president's signature.
The auto pen, I think, is maybe one of the biggest scandals that we've had in 50 to 100 years.
President Trump in the Oval Office Monday, the president has said he never used the auto pen for important documents, only for things like letters to constituents. House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer told Fox Morning Futures he's concerned about where Biden was when the machine was signing his name.
Many of these were signed on days when Joe Biden was supposedly in the White House. Why couldn't he have signed it, his name right there? Why did they have to use an auto pen?
Also on Fox, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul wants answers about the virtual chain of custody.
There actually has to be a person who ran the auto pen. Someone had to do it. And I think that if we find that person, the next question is, who asked you to do that?
Presidents of both parties, dating back to Harry Truman, have used an auto pen to sign correspondence, letters, and photographs. Gerald Ford was the first to publicly acknowledge its use. Barack Obama was the first to sign a bill via auto pen, an extension of the Patriot Act in 2011 when he was overseas. That was based on a Justice Department finding in 2005 during the George W. Bush administration. It said the president doesn't have to be present for a bill signing, providing he made the decision to approve the bill. And in an interview this week with the New York Times, President Biden said he made the decision on every one of the pardons and clemency cases. I'm Richard Johnson.
When we return on America in the Morning, post-COVID, getting corporate types back in the office, and Musk's new multi-million-dollar deal with the U.S. government. After these messages. The Trump administration is facing a lawsuit being brought by more than a dozen states. Correspondent Julie Walker reports the suit revolves around frozen after-school and summer funding.
More than 20 states are suing President Trump's administration over billions of dollars in funding for after-school care, summer programs, and more that is now frozen. Programs for more than 1 million students are at risk because of a Trump administration freeze on education grants. Congress set aside money for the programs at Boys and Girls Clubs, the YMCA, and public schools to provide academic support, enrichment, and child care. But Trump's administration says it wants to make sure recipients' programs align with the Republican president's priorities. The lawsuit was filed Monday and is led by California. It says freezing the money violates the Constitution and several federal laws. I'm Julie Walker.
The European Union met for an emergency session after President Trump announced sweeping 30% tariffs on EU member nations to begin next month. Karen Shamus has details.
European trade ministers are meeting in Brussels after President Donald Trump announced 30% tariffs on the European Union. The tariffs against the EU, America's largest trading partner, could disrupt economies and raise prices on goods like French cheese and German electronics. Brussels has delayed retaliatory tariffs to allow time for negotiations until the 1st of August. European leaders have emphasized unity but are preparing countermeasures if talks fail. Danish Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen told reporters,
"We do not want any kind of trade war with the US. It will be devastating, not just for the Americans, but also for Europe. So we don't want to escalate things. Then on the other hand, we also need to, I would say, flash some muscles."
Meanwhile, the EU is strengthening ties with Asia and South American nations, seeking to diversify its economic partnerships amid ongoing tensions with the US. I'm Karen Shamas.
Overnight, Politico Europe is reporting that the European Union is considering tariff countermeasures targeting American-made aircraft, cars, and car parts, along with whiskey, if the U.S. tariffs go into effect. America in the Morning continues. Working from home is not just becoming a thing of the past at Starbucks. Lisa Dwyer reports on a new move by the coffee seller to bring corporate employees back into the office.
Starbucks is requiring that all corporate people leaders must be based in either Seattle or Toronto within 12 months. Affected employees will need to be in the office 4 days a week, starting in early October. Starbucks says individual employees working under those leaders will not be asked to relocate, but that all hiring for future roles and lateral moves will require employees to be based in either Seattle or Toronto. Affected workers who choose not to relocate will be eligible for a one-time voluntary exit program with a cash payment. Starbucks is following moves by other major employers such as Amazon, AT&T, and the federal government, whose employees are now required to work in office 5 days per week. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
Elon Musk's XAI has sold a suite of AI products to the Trump administration's Defense Department in a whopping $200 million deal. Chuck Palm has details in today's Tech Report.
XAI, the parent company behind Grok, the AI associated with X and owned by Elon Musk, has just signed a deal worth $200 million to contract with the U.S. Department of Defense to roll out their AI chatbot for military use. This news comes hot on the heels of the announcement yesterday by Google for another big government contract. Grok was in the news last week for an anti-Semitic meltdown, as well as the changing of the guard at X after CEO Linda Yaccarino's sudden exit at the end of last week. XAI announced Grok for Government, a suite of AI tools, including the new Grok 4, which is now available to federal agencies via the General Services Administration. The Pentagon's deal aims to develop agentic AI workflows for national security, per the Chief Digital AI Office, giving a much-needed boost to the Defense Department to modernize their systems. Bitcoin set a new record, topping 121,000 yesterday, and Ethereum broke 3,000, while most cryptos are trading up. Find me at chuckpalm.com.
In sports, focus on Major League Baseball later tonight for the All-Star Game. With more in sports, here's our Robert Workman.
Baseball at the All-Star break. Last night, it was the Home Run Derby in Atlanta, won by the home run leader in the major leagues at the break, Mariners catcher Cal Raleigh. It was no cakewalk, though, as Raleigh and A's outfielder Brent Rooker each hit 17 dingers in the opening round and had to go to a tiebreaker for the last spot in the Final Four. Raleigh's longest home run of the round went roughly 1 inch further than Rooker's.
My goodness gracious, that's close. I mean, it's just crazy. You know, an inch off and I'm not even in the Final Four, which is, amazing. So I guess I got lucky there.
That moved Raleigh into the second round with O'Neal Cruz, Byron Buxton, and Junior Caminero, leaving 4 batters behind, including Jazz Chisholm Jr., the last-minute Yankee replacement, who hit just 3 dingers on 40 pitches. Cruz wowed them in the first round, though, averaging 447 feet per blast, including a 513-foot shot. But the Pirates slugger lost to Raleigh 19-13 in the semifinals, while the Rays' Caminero edged the Twins' Buxton 8-7 to earn his spot in the final. And Raleigh, nicknamed the Big Dumper, came through again, 18-15, to become the first catcher to win the event, and the first switch hitter as well.
Kind of surreal, you don't think you're going to win it, and you don't think you're ever going to get invited, and then you get invited, and the fact that you win it with your family, and super special, and just what a night.
Raleigh's dad pitched to him during the Derby, and his brother was the catcher. Tonight it's the 95th Major League All-Star Game in Atlanta. Raleigh will be batting cleanup for the American League as they look to expand their all-time series edge of 48-44 with 2 ties. That's Tuesday Sports.
Thank you, Robert. When we return on America in the Morning, Rowling's fantasy character is headed for the small screen after these messages. This is America in the Morning. H is for hacker. X stands for the X social media platform. Correspondent Marcela Sanchez reports fans of Elmo on Sesame Street were left speechless after racist and obscene tweets were posted on that favorite character's X account in a cybersecurity breach.
Elmo's usual posts of encouragement and kindness on X were taken over by a hacker who posted a string of racist and anti-Semitic messages. A Sesame Workshop spokesperson says the team was working to restore full control of the account today. The incident happened over the weekend, with the hackers sharing anti-Semitic threats and a profane reference to the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking investigation. The tweets have since been deleted.
Elmo thinks that it's very important to respect everybody and treat people the way you would like to be treated.
That's right, and I think it starts with being kind.
Yes.
Elmo's social media account has lately become a place for mental health awareness. Last year, the red fuzzy monster caused a sensation when he asked, "Elmo is just checking in. How is everybody doing?" His post drew responses from then President Joe Biden and Chance the Rapper. I'm Marcela Sanchez.
Harry Potter's many movies were hits in theaters, and now the wizard will be heading to television. America in the Morning's Kevin Carr reports.
On Monday, Warner Brothers Discovery announced that production had begun on the upcoming Harry Potter television series.
You're a wizard, Harry.
This original series will air on HBO and HBO Max, devoting one season to each of J.K. Rowling's best-selling books. Unlike the 8 films released from 2001 to 2011, the longer-form television format will allow the story to include elements not yet adapted from the books.
Harry Potter, the boy who lived.
Monday's announcement included a behind-the-scenes still of 11-year-old Dominic McLaughlin as the title character, holding up a slate and wearing traditional Hogwarts garb. The studio also announced new cast members, including Anton Lesser from Game of Thrones, The Crown, and Andor as Wandmaker Garrick Ollivander. They will be joining well-known actors in the series, including John Lithgow as Albus Dumbledore, Papa Essiedu as Severus Snape, Janet McTeer as Minerva McGonagall, and Nick Frost as Rubeus Hagrid.
No more questions. Don't ask any more questions.
Warner Brothers Discovery hopes to recharge fans to the Harry Potter franchise after interest in the Fantastic Beasts movies waned over several films. The new series will be written and executive produced by Francesca Gardner, with Succession's Mark Millard serving as executive producer and directing multiple episodes. The new Harry Potter series will debut in 2027. I'm Kevin Carr.
That's our show for today, Tuesday, July 15th, 2025. America in the Morning is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.